Hi. You're supposed to say hi back. You know, it's polite. Hi. Hi. First of all, I find it a miracle that all of you are here 2 days after King's Day. I must say, this is incredible. I barely made it, but there you go. I had a spiritual experience. Well, the LSD definitely helped. But I was sitting in front of a girl that I really liked, Dutch girl, a bit of a hippie, you know, like kind of feathers on her ears, bracelets, one feather coming from the top of her head. And I was looking at her, and suddenly I heard my intuition speak. And it said something like, "My God, you are not from here. You're not Dutch." And she said, "What do you mean? I was born in Amsterdam." "Yes, yes, yes. But you are Native American. I can feel it. I can look at you pretending to be Native American where you already are. You're just trying to remind yourself who you are with this exterior stuff that you put on yourself." And I kept looking at her, and then I can only describe the experience as this. What I have seen was infinite. It did not have a beginning nor an end, and it was horizontal. It spread into the horizon, and her eyes suddenly changed in what I call a combination of two things: sorrow and longing. And it was so deep that I knew immediately, with my LSD mind, it did not belong to a human. This one belonged to a tribe. And I told her, "My God, you are carrying pain of such an ancient tribe inside of you." And she said, "What the hell are you talking about?" At that moment, I realized I have to go to the toilet. So I went to the toilet, I closed the door, and I was stuck, my friends. I was stuck. Because I realized it wasn't her I was speaking about. It was me. I was seeing the pain of my tribe in her eyes, the Jewish tribe, growing up in Israel. And I started to think, my God, where is this identity is formed? How is it created? Well, I'm a storyteller, I should know, no? Yeah. Stories, my God, one story after each other that transformed from a father to a son, and slowly start to form our sense of our identity. And I started to see in front of my eyes the stories I grew up with. Like, I don't know if you know, but Abraham has 2 sons, Isaac, the father of my tribe, and Ishmael is the father of the other tribe that we are meant not to identify with. And there I saw the problem. You see? Because the moment you identify with one tribe, you're immediately not identified with another. And I remember the story of Samson, the hero with the long hair and the broad shoulders, the man that we were taught his story as a symbol of a man that sacrifices himself for his tribe, making sure that the image of the enemy, the other, is well portrayed. But you might say to yourself, well, perhaps it's typical for the Hebrew culture to be excluded. Well, it's not, actually. Even if you take the other side of the conflict and you go to the Quran, you will find the same story of Abraham with 2 sons again, but this time Ishmael is the father of the tribe, while Isaac is the other. But then you might say, yeah, but here in the Netherlands we don't read the Bible anymore, eh? Right? It's ancient stories, come on, we threw them from all the stairs long time ago. Well, I would be careful because, you know, these images, they are transforming all the time. They're translating themselves into new, modern, contemporary images. Let me give you an example. So, when I was 7, I went on a school trip to the Golan Heights. And my teacher, she was leading us. And suddenly we found ourselves next to a trench. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a trench in your life. It's a kind of a ditch in the ground, covered with concrete, and a lot of barbed wires above it all around. And what did we do, children, 7 years old, standing in front of a trench? We jumped inside and we started to play. You know, the sticks became guns, and after a while, the teacher, she kind of gathered us, and she told us the story of why she had brought us there. And she said, "Look, here where you stand, not so long ago were our brave soldiers. And they were fighting against the enemy that was on the top of the hill. But it wasn't easy, because in order to protect this valley, one by one they had to stand above the trench and shoot anyone that would come near, because if they managed to come near, they would throw a grenade in the trench, and then the whole story is over. But it wasn't easy, because these soldiers, as they stood up, immediately they were shot down in their head back to the ditch. So no one wanted to do that anymore. And then she said, the commander, he told them, look, if you are not going to volunteer, I'm going to have to volunteer one of you myself, and I don't want to do that, so please. At that moment stood Eli, a young soldier. He said, I'll do it. He stood up above the trench, and he fought. 1 hour. Bullets were whistling next to his ears. 2 hours. Like a lion, he fought. 3 hours, she said, until the army was almost there to release them, and then he died. But I tell you something, children, his memory didn't. And in a few years from now, you will go to the army, and you will hold a gun, and I want you to remember this story. And I looked at the children around me, and I saw their backs straighten. I saw themselves, imagining themselves becoming heroes, warriors, and perhaps somewhere deep in their subconscious with long hair and broad shoulders, an Old Testament hero. And is it possible that just on top of that hill, there was another group of children with their teacher, this time telling them stories in Arabic, telling them the stories about the warriors that stood there and had to storm down and battle against a well-defended trench, and how they had to sacrifice their life one by one in order to retrieve the land that was taken away from them? And is it possible that the children over there also straightened their backs, imagined themselves to be warriors one day? So I'm standing in front of the mirror, hand in my hair, my God. And suddenly I see the letters in Hebrew I have tattooed on my arm. You don't see it now, but it's under this sleeve. And then it hits me, my God, what is this persona that I have created? It's created by stories. But is this who I am? Or is it just a very well-written story? Is there a place in me that is free from that story? And if there is, what does it say about the other? Or maybe the other just doesn't exist. So I wash my hands, and I hear the girl from the outside, what are you doing there? You're stuck there for an hour already. Come on, come outside. And as I hear this water dripping on my hands, I see a final image in front of my eyes. And there I'm in Norway, boom, next to a waterfall. Beautiful. I'm sitting on a bench. The birds are whistling. It's paradise. And there are people passing by. And suddenly there is this man coming, this old man, brown skin, dark eyes. He's wearing this t-shirt saying Oklahoma University. And he comes to me and he says, where are you from, son? And I say, well, I'm from Israel. And then I see his face change in a second. And he says, what? Well, I'm from Palestine. And he sits on the bench and he starts to tell me his entire story, how he was a refugee and after the war had to leave and never could come back. And he tells me another story and another story. And we talked for a lot of time. And he told me about his pain. And after a while, when I was safe enough, I told him about my pain and my history. And we argued about who was right and who was more right. And after a lot of talking, suddenly silences started to creep in. And the story started to dissolve. And there was one moment that there was suddenly silence. Like kind of out of nowhere, we hugged. And I tell you, at that moment, there was no an Israeli and a Palestinian. There was no bridge needed to be built, actually. Because there was no story dividing us. It was just warmth of a man meeting another warmth of another man, simple as that. Atoms meeting atoms. Thank you.